Hello everyone and welcome to Whisky Wednesday. Today we're going all the way over to Australia. I don't think we've done Australian whisky since Joe was in charge of the channel. I think Overeem many years ago and possibly Sullivan's Cove. Not too sure, I've not checked through the archives. But today the most important thing is the whisky we're talking about, and it's Starward. We've got two here. The one we're talking is the one that's mostly empty, or mostly full, I should say, depending on your perspective. It's called the Twofold, and that's because it's wheated whiskey and malted barley combined together. It's 40% ABV, it's a beautiful natural colour, and it has been fully matured in the best cask they can source from where it's made in Melbourne, all red wine barrels. I'm not a huge red wine fan, or indeed I don't know much about red wine, but the beauty of being in somewhere like Melbourne and making whiskey is that you can pretty much source some of the best Australian wine casks in the world, or indeed in Australia. As it's got wheat in it, that kind of gets me excited more because, as you know, I'm a huge Maker's Mark fan, huge Weller fan, and wheat just kind of sets me alight with all these beautiful flavour profiles it brings in. Relatively small distillery, have some cool investments coming into them. They're expanding and doing all these great things. The bottle next to it is called the Solera. That is essentially Australian sherry. They just can't call it sherry, so they call it a para or a para because it's like an aperitif for them after dinner. If you like Glendronach and Dalmore and stuff like that, that is beautiful. So the Twofold's coming in and bringing in that kind of blended style of malted barley and wheat with all this red wine influence. It's just going to give you a stepping stone into what Australian whiskey perhaps should taste like. Because we think about Scottish whiskey, Irish whiskey, American whiskey, Japanese, Indian, Taiwanese. We have an idea in our heads now as whiskey drinkers about what to expect from that. I don't really have that with Australian whiskey. The most Australian whiskey I've tried is from Starward now. I've tried 4 of their expressions and each one of them is beautiful. So it's really winning me around as a drinker, and it's kind of helping to establish a concrete foundation for what Australian whiskey should taste like, which is good. But let's smell it, let's taste it, that's where the money is, right? So for the smell. It's very subtle. It's not a whiskey that jumps out at you. Had the privilege of chatting to like the brand ambassadors, Pete, and the owner, David Vitale. He was in Manchester tail end of 2019. Had a beautiful chat with him in October. And a lot of people go, why is it not cask strength? Why is it not all this? And I've tried cask strength Starward and it's just really spicy because Australia is pretty hot. And Melbourne can experience all 4 different seasons in one day. Like it can go from beautifully sunny to freezing cold and snowing in like 3 hours. So to do cask strength whiskey would be quite intense, but I think at 40 and 41%, which are their standard bottling strengths, they work well. But it's not whiskey that's going to jump out at you on the nose. It's got these very soft blackberry, cherry, bramble fruit style. Not knowing much about red wine, I'm not sure the cask types and the grape types this is sourced from. But you can imagine those beautiful red wine flavours, cherries, grapes. This seems like a very stupid thing to say, but it does smell a lot of grape. Dark chocolates, tannic, bittersweet, almost sometimes smoky notes that you can get from some heavy red wines. That isn't present in this though. Certainly the cherry, the blackberry, the bramble fruits, a little bit of blueberry as well. It's very crisp, it's very clean. But the wheat is playing a very important part here. And much like in things like Maker's Mark 46, much like in Weller 12, William LaRue Weller, you're getting these wonderful undertones of like coffee, milk chocolate, like glazed cherries, kind of like caramelized cherries. And then to top it all off is just this big, round, summery, creamy strawberry note. So if you are not particularly a fan of those lighter styles of whiskey, might not be for you. If you do like those crisper, cleaner styles of whiskey, this could be right up your street. But the wheat and the wine are playing a very important part in the flavour combination of this. But it's all about taste. So let's see what it says on the palate. Extremely easygoing without being dull. I find a lot of whiskies that drink very easily tend to not have the biggest flavour profile. Names won't be mentioned, you're all aware of the reviews. But this delivers a kind of thick, syrupy flavour. There's not overindulgent. It gets around your mouth, it's nice and oily. And everything that's present on the nose is present on the palate. So there's nice big summer fruits, caramels, milk chocolates, kind of toffees and fudges, all very lightly scattering about the palate. Not one particularly leading the way. Dominating flavour in the finish is red wine, but it's lighter red wines, Pinot Noirs and that kind of thing. Not particularly intense styles. It's only like £40 a bottle, maybe sometimes slightly under. And with that, like, this is good for drinking neat, it's good for mixing, it's good for whiskey on ice. And I think this on like a really hot day with like loads of kind of ginger beer or like fizzy apple juice or something, that'd be great with loads of ice and mint. But even on its own, it's a beautifully, slightly complex, different kind of whiskey, and offering you an insight into what Australians are doing right now with their whiskey production. But one more taste and then we'll give it a go. Slightly more intense notes the second time, more of that coffee, more kind of bittersweet dark chocolates, more malted barley. Getting more into that kind of single malt wine and sherry influenced territory. But overall delicious, not particularly expensive, is interesting, is different. There's not many whiskies I can say tick all of those boxes for £40 or less in whiskey these days. So as a result of that, I think it's going to walk with an 8. Delicious product, very, very easy drinking. That is Starward Twofold, 40% ABV, big red wine influence, cool Australian product. And if you're into single malts and bourbons, literally it strikes a little tick in between all of them. So thank you all for watching. This is the Starward Twofold. I'm Phil, this is Whisky Wednesday. It's an 8 out of 10, and we'll see you all very soon.